Hello and welcome back to Conquering My Collection and rounding off a little two-part video here, a kind of duology of videos on the Battle Royale series and the new Arrow Video Battle Royale box set, which features the original film in 4K Ultra HD, which I previously talked about in the last video, and the sequel from 2003, directed by the son of Kinji Fukasaku, who did the first film, Kenta Fukasaku. And I did read that the director of the first film, Kinji, did actually film one scene for the sequel and was planning to direct it, but sadly passed away. So his son, who had written both films, stepped in to direct and finish it. Well, not even finish it, but to actually do the whole thing. If it's just one scene, there's not really much has been started, has it? So he had an uphill battle, I guess, in terms of jumping in and being the director and finishing this film. And I think he kind of credits his dad at the end. I think it says a film by Kenta Fukasaku and Kinji Fukasaku. But it's one of those tricky things where all I've heard about this film, and I'd never seen it before until this week, all I'd heard was that it was terrible. Just a abortion of a movie, you know, just completely pales in comparison to the original, as an insult to the original, burn it with fire, you know, and I just thought, is it really that bad? You know, I was excited about watching it. Seeing the first film in 4K, I'm back in the zone of loving that film, and you know, it was great to revisit it, so I thought, oh, I want to see the sequel. And you look on the cover here of the Battle Royale 2 Requiem, you know, kind of digipack for the film, you know, very, very nice, and I was kind of just, yeah, I'm amped up about seeing this. You got Shuya Nanahara on the front there, looking like a badass. He's now a terrorist, and as part of the Wild 7. And I was like, I want to see what happened to that character after what happened in the first film. The fact that it was the same actor, that kind of got my kind of, you know, my anticipation flowing, and I'm just like, I really want to see what happens next. It's the same team making it, you know, the same writer, and I just thought, you know, some people just, they shit on films unfairly, I think. So I went into this with an open mind, sat down and watched it. The first maybe 10-20 minutes, I was loving this. You know, Shuya has now gone off and been a part of a terrorist organization. They've killed millions of people. There's this opening shot, or near the opening of the film, which for me felt very reminiscent of 9/11. These two towers falling, and then it kind of zooms out and you see all these other buildings falling. But it felt like a bit of a reference there that was a little bit maybe too on the nose, or perhaps accidental. I don't know, but that's certainly what I felt from that opening sequence. But it was implying this horror. And it's like, what the fuck did he do? Why did he do this? I guess is the more appropriate question. And I was all in on finding out. So Shuya and the Wild 7, they're holed up on this island, this uninhabited island, and the government is sending in a class of school kids with collars around their necks, just like the first movie. They're calling it the BR Act 2. So it's like the kind of the sequel to the, you know, it's the movie is the sequel, and this program is the sequel to what they did before in the first movie, and obviously it had been a kind of long running, I think a yearly kind of, again, what do you call it, an event? I don't know, but it's this program, and so they get this new whole host of kids and new faces, new actors, new characters, and they get sent to this island to take down Shuya and his group. So we see the kind of classroom sequence. It wasn't even a classroom, it's like a kind of a warehouse. And they gather all these kids together, and there's a line through the front of the floor. And the teacher is there, and he's saying, right, this side, you're going with us, you're going to the island, or you know, well, not going with us, he doesn't go, but, you know, this side of the line, you're going, this side of the line, you're staying. And if you stay, you die. And it's a really interesting sequence. I love the psychology of it, where, you know, no one really wants to cross that line. And then this one kid, he gets psyched up enough that he goes over and picks up his bag. And now someone else goes to do it. And then someone else goes to do it. And it felt a little bit like the sequence in The Lighthouse in the first movie, where you can look at it as kind of a microcosm of a much larger human problem, where it's this kind of the peer pressure at its finest, at its highest form. You know, will you jump off a cliff if he will go and jump off a cliff? Will you go and kill people if he'll go and kill people, you know? And you have the kid who refuses to do it. And there's still people on the fence. And he dies horrifically. And they all move, you know? And then there's another kind of reveal, which kind of throws a new spanner into the works. And it's a new rule for this version of Battle Royale, which I thought was a really cool twist, where they're now partnered up. And so if they're kind of tag team partner in a way, dies, then they die too, and their collar explodes. If they go too far away from their partner, the collar will explode. And then they're also putting in these rules of you can't be in one area of the island for more than an hour or something. There's like an hour if you go in that zone, and then the collar will blow up. I thought, wow, there's a lot of new rules. And then I thought about the fact that, hey, if the mission is the government sending these kids to take out these if you go by the amount of people they killed, the most dangerous terrorists in the world, why are they employing all these rules in which these kids might fail before they even get to where these terrorists are? Why are they making this a game? Why don't the government just bomb that island from orbit? It's surely the only way to be sure, right? And that kind of plays into the film later on, about an hour in, and the government do decide to bomb the site. And I guess maybe the rationale is that the kind of mandate, the kind of the mission statement from the Wild 7 is we're fighting against the adults. You know, like this is like kids against the adults, and we're going to take you down. We're going to kill you for what you've done to us. So maybe the government was like, well, we want to fight fire with fire. You know, it's a statement. We want kids to go and kill those kids. And when that doesn't really work, then they just start bombing the island and sending in the troops. So I think that's probably the idea. But at first it seemed a little bit silly. Why would they do this? Why would they pick these kids? And it's almost even more cruel. I mean, you know, the idea of Battle Royale in the first film is incredibly cruel to begin with. It's a completely random thing. These kids have really done nothing. I suppose I could say that, but also in the world of Battle Royale, the kids have been very unruly and obviously like slashing their teachers with knives, so perhaps they've done a few things, but the point stands. It's horrible either way, but this one seems particularly fruitless, and even when they all get to like the big building where the Wild 7 are situated, all of their collars start flashing as if they're all going to be killed. So was that like a random thing that they triggered? Like, oh, now they're there, we'll just kill them all. Were they just trying to make a point that they couldn't do it? I don't know. It was confusing a little bit, but I was still intrigued. I still wanted to see, you know, where Shuya was, and if Noriko was there, which she isn't, but she is in the film very briefly at the end. The sequence when they get onto the shore of the island, it felt very much like Saving Private Ryan. Even though I've never seen that film, I'm familiar with the opening sequence on the beach and the way that it was shot, the way that it was filmed. It looked very reminiscent to that. And there's a lot of gunfire in the film. It seems like they felt with the sequel, bigger, louder, better. More bullets, more CGI blood, more death. That'll be the best way to go about things. But it's a weird film, Battle Royale 2, where they just seem to throw everything and all the kitchen sinks they could possibly find, and then throw in a few, fridge freezer units, just some hobs, anything they could find from the kitchen, anything they could find from any house, any room. There's just everything is all thrown in there. It feels like it's so jam-packed full of just guns, firing off. There's bullets here, people dying there, but blood, bullets, and things exploding, all this stuff, and a shaky cam and murky kind of visuals and stuff. But then there's so many scenes where people are just sitting around very quietly talking. There's a scene right near the end where Shuya and another character, they're running away from these soldiers coming in. There's people dying everywhere, and it's like right towards the end of the film. Now this is like, what is going to happen to these characters? The bullets are flying. These soldiers are right on their tail. They run down these steps into this basement room, and they stop on the steps, and then it's quiet, and they start having this conversation. The guys are right behind them. The soldiers were right behind them, and they sit down. They have this chat for about 2 minutes. And like, okay, we're gonna go back out there, and then suddenly the action starts again, and it was just like, because they were behind a barricade, right? So if they had shot it and laid it out so that they get the guns out, they're shooting, okay, let's retreat downstairs, and then they have the talk, and then after the talk, you have a shot of the soldiers coming over the barricade. Oh, they're coming now. That would make so much more sense, but you just have it where these guys are right behind them. And they stop at the bottom of the stairs. There's no door. It's wide open. The soldiers could have just looked at the top of the stairs, gone, oh, hang on, guys. Get your guns out. They're just sat down here. Just get all the guns here. We'll just pop them. They would have been dead instantly, Just rained fire down from the top of the stairs. So just little things like that really made no fucking sense whatsoever. Were really, that stood out like a sore thumb. And there was just these moments where it's so slow. And I wasn't connecting to the characters. There was a couple. There was this kid with dyed hair. I forget his character's name, but I felt something from him, and I will say, I feel like the kids are really giving a good, they're really giving it a good go. The production value, the island there that they shot on, just some of the stunts that they did, really well done. There's an incredibly tense sequence near the beginning when they're first trying to get up to the top of the island where the Wild Seven are located, and they're kind of hiding in this building. They're sniping down from the top, and there's this girl who has stayed behind in a faraway hut, and her collar's going off, and this other guy's collar is going off. And they're like, you got to come closer, you're too far away from this guy. And she's like, oh, we're going to die anyway. And the tension was fucking incredible. I love that sequence. But this is all within the first 20 minutes of the film. Now the teacher, who kind of plays the Kitano role, goes in the complete opposite direction. Kitano in the first film is kind of cool, calm, collected, and that's what makes him sinister. That's what makes him kind of fun and funny in a very dark kind of way. This guy is just like, he isn't just eating the scenery. He is not just devouring the scenery. He's not fully digesting the scenery. It's just going all the way through his system. I know I'm going wild with the analogies here. He's letting the scenery go all through his system without even swallowing. It's like coming out of his arse, and he's eating the shit again. That's how much scenery chewing, I'll leave that in for free, is going on here, because he is just wildly over the top. It is cartoony. He's going rubber-faced Jim Carrey with this. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely terrible. And that's kind of what made it fun for me. I thought, I'm all in on it. This is an overly stylized kind of story, and the first movie was kind of overly dramatic too, kind of operatic in a way. I'll go along with this. But, as it went on, what a weird character. They tried to give him this tragic backstory and stuff. But then his final scene is one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever seen in my entire life. When he comes in the rugby getup, and he's just like, go! And he's like acting like this big triumphant dad moment almost. And then he scores a try with the rugby ball and his head flies off, and I just thought, what the fuck did I just see? What a weird character. What a borderline terrible performance. I mean, again, I talked about in one of the previous videos for this box set how, when it's a foreign language, can you really tell whether the performance is that good or not? Sometimes you can tell when it's really good just by the subtleties of the expression and the way that performance and just the lines on their face moving, they make you feel something. On the other end of the scale, you can see when someone is just puffing their face out and they're just inconsistent and all over the place. It's a bad performance. It just is. But it's kind of fun in that sense too. And he's almost a saving grace of the movie whenever he's in it, I'm like, all right, well, let's see what the fuck he's going to do next, and especially by the last moment of his character, it's like, what the fuck? But, the kids who are in the class who go to the island, there's not much to them, apart from the main guy. There's a real geeky kid who seems to have kind of this story going on that I was apparently oblivious to. I was sleepy when I watched the film. There's maybe 3 or 4 sections of the film where I nodded off a little bit, but I didn't want to have that be held against the film for me. So whenever that happened, I literally rewound by 5 minutes and just watched it again. So I didn't miss anything. But it was just really hard to stay engaged with at times. I like that they gave it more time and they tried to go into deeper stuff, and some of the moments where Shuya was talking about, and I like that he was this disillusioned guy, who'd been through so much shit. But it felt like he had fallen on the wrong side of the story in a way. Or had he? In a future dystopia, I don't know. But there's some interesting discussions to be made about what his character does, what he's done. Because this is a guy who didn't kill anyone in the first film. He was almost this symbol of virtue. And now he's this guy who's been responsible for so much death and destruction. And is that the right thing? And what does he believe in? And, and all this kind of stuff. But he's kind of in this mindset of this has to be done. These people need to die. And that's the only way to do it. And then we have an interesting element where Kitano's daughter, who we kind of hear about in the first movie, has now found a way she's found a way to be inserted into this thing. So now she goes to the island because she wants to, I think, kill Shuya, or at least confront him. So she gets there and she talks to him, but there's no real conflict there. There's no sparks about her being there, really. Once she gets there, it's like, oh, that's a bit disappointing. It wasn't really that dramatic, and she ends up kind of sticking around and doesn't really do much, Again, I almost feel like, did I miss half an hour of the movie? But it's so long. And it dragged, and they get there, and they're like, oh, wait, we're all the same. So, the kids who were sent there to kill the Wild Seven, they kind of all join forces. the government, the military storms the island and kills a few people, and they fight back, and then they just sit around for a while and rinse, repeat. And then you have the ending where most of them die, and I don't know, it just didn't really. It's a weird thing where so much happened but didn't happen. If that makes any kind of sense, I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I really would, and I avoided Letterboxd to see what my friends and people I follow thought of the film. But after I watched the film, I looked and I thought, yeah, most of the time when I see people and they give films like 2 stars or 1 star, I think, they've been a bit harsh there. It's a hard thing to make a movie, and I always try and see the positives, but I couldn't really honestly give it more than a 2 out of 5 or 4 out of 10, because there's merit there. I see promise in the story. But by the end, spoilers, I mean, if you're watching this far, Shuya, he's become this terrorist, and it's just like, wow, what a turn from the first movie. And the payoff is he escapes from the government's attack, goes back to Noriko, and then it's like, yeah, now I look forward to the future. It's like, why? What are you going to do next? Like, are you going to reckon with what you've done? Are you going to keep doing the same thing? Are you just going to, I'll leave that now. Then that didn't work. Yeah, I was just sat there with Connie, just like, and she checked out, by the way. She thought she might have seen it before. She didn't really recognize any scenes when it was playing. And after about half an hour, she was kind of done. She's like, it's crap. She was just like, I don't really, and she very rarely will Connie check out of a movie, but she just had to stop watching and just go on her phone and do other things, because it just wasn't. She had a nap, and I filled her in on what happened, and she's like, do you really need to? She just couldn't care less about this film. And she loves the first one, so it was really disappointing to her, and I think it's really disappointing to a lot of people. Now, the box set does have Battle Royale 2 Revenge. I don't know the circumstances surrounding this special edition. I think that it's 20 more minutes of footage. I don't know if I can stomach that much, but I think at some point I'm definitely going to watch it. I'm intrigued to see if it'll make it better. I'm intrigued to see if it'll make it worse. And I almost feel like I didn't give it enough credit. Maybe I should have been keeping real close attention, but I think that if you really need to work to kind of find character relationships that are interesting and well drawn and well performed, I think that, it's not there to begin with. I think that a great film, or at least a really good film, even just a really good film, there's something about it that works, and that's why it's easy to understand. And there are some films that aren't easy to understand, but this is a kind of story where there's a lot of characters, and I just feel like I didn't get to know them that much, even though there's so much running time. There was the really cool looking girl with the kind of bandana and stuff, and she looked fucking awesome and cool, but, towards the end that someone said goodbye to her, and there was this like really emotional, I was like, what was that relationship? I didn't catch that. Like, am I just missing something? Am I missing something, or is the film missing something? I don't really know, but I have a hunch that it's the film that's missing something. So anyway, that's Battle Royale 2 Requiem. Kind of really super fucking disappointing, I have to say, but I'm glad I've seen it now. I'm glad that it's included at least. I don't think it's something that should be wiped from history or anything. It wasn't offensively bad. It was just disappointing. It's that kind of thing where, it stings the most when your parents are saying, like, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed. It's like, just tell me you're mad at me. Just tell me I suck. Battle Royale 2 is screaming. Just don't say you're disappointed in me. But I was disappointed. And it's a shame as well, because it was like, the original director, he died, and his son finished this film for his dad, and you want it to be better, but you have to call a spade sometimes, and I'm willing to give it another chance. A different cut of the film is certainly something that makes it easier for me to go back to it, but I don't know if I'd be rushing into it anytime soon. But maybe sooner rather than later, because I don't know how much is going to stay fresh in my mind, because it just all seems so hazy. Again, I was sleepy when I watched it, but I made sure that I saw every moment, But maybe I just wasn't retaining enough. It's tricky, it really is, I don't know. But either way, Battle Royale 2 Requiem could have been so much. I liked again, the first act, or at least the first 20-30 minutes. I thought, this is really good, I'm really enjoying it. It's a bit goofy, the teacher's kind of crazy and over the top, more so than usual in the first film in terms of the over-stylized kind of performances and stuff, but I'm digging it. I really like this. I'm intrigued to see where Shuya is and all this, and then once we get there to that building, it just all tapers off into this really slow, I don't know. And I've read that people say that it's a really political movie and it's very anti-American, and I didn't quite get that, so maybe I really wasn't paying as much attention as I should have, or as much as the film deserved. I mean, there's definitely kind of a political message there in terms of, you know, military, and but again, you have this thing where the main character from the first film becomes a terrorist in the second film, and how do you really get an in on that character, you know? He's not really even the main character of this one. He's kind of an integral part of the film. But you have this guy, the kind of blonde-haired kid, who is kind of the protagonist of the new class. And so he comes in, and yeah, you kind of get behind him, and they have their kind of the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid moment. But I don't know. I just by the end, I just felt like, was that it? And there was already so much of it, you know. Anyway, I'll leave it there. It was kind of a downer of an experience to end, like, you know, watching these films on the box set. But at least with this, the new Arrow Video box set, I have, like, all the extras to go through, or at least some of them that I'll cherry pick. And, you know, maybe I should watch the special edition version of Battle Royale 2. And if that is even worse or just the same as the original cut, I could wash that down with the special edition version of the original movie. And maybe I can come back and do a follow-up video or two. Who knows? We'll see. But no promises. I'm glad that, you know, I got this box set. I watched the two films and have made like 3 videos on it within the week that it came out. It feels like a worthy purchase in terms of making some videos that I feel like I've enjoyed talking about these films. I'm no expert, of course. I know that there's a big fan base around these movies, and people are very passionate about them and knowledgeable about so much around, you know, at least the original movie. So forgive me if I come across as ignorant, but just as a base, you know, entertaining movie level, I really loved the first one and was really left feeling shortchanged by the sequel. And again, I seem to be in the majority there. It's a film that doesn't seem to get a lot of love. And I admittedly went into this film wanting to find more in it that other people did. And that's kind of you know, I own up to that. But that's kind of it's a fun challenge for me almost. It's like, well, everyone hates it. And maybe it's the wrong way of attacking it, because it's kind of, it's saying, well, let's see what you know, I'm sure I can find something that they're missing, you know, and that's probably like a bit of a negative way to go into a film, and not it's not an easy thing to admit, but that's certainly what goes through my head sometimes. It's like, well, let me just see if this is really as bad as they say it is, and maybe I can see something that they're missing, as I just said. But you know, no, it really is as shit as everyone says it is. There wasn't really much I could shine on this turd. No, that's going too far. I said that for effect. It's not the worst film I've ever seen. It wasn't too far. No, it was just average, below average, and just based on the first film, mediocre, disappointing. It reminds me of a quote. I think I've said this before in a video or two. It reminds me of a quote. I think the guy's name was Dean, and it was on one of the early UK Big Brother shows. And this guy, I think his name was Dean, and he always used to sit in the chair in the garden of the Big Brother house, and he'd have his arm like this. I don't think I can do it now because I'm so fat, but he'd have his arm around that, and this would be like pulling the chin, like that. And it just looked so weird. Like, he was a gangly guy, but he would just sit there with his arm like that. And this quote that he said after one of the challenges in the house kind of perfectly sums up, now that I think about it, the Battle Royale 2 Requiem experience for me. How boring, unrewarding, disappointing, and horrible that was. And that is a quote that has stuck with me for 20 years now. I think it was about 20 years since that season came out and was showing live in the as it was happening in the UK. And it stuck with me for 20 years. It'll stick with me for another 20, and it really is applicable to a film like Battle Royale 2. How boring, unrewarding, disappointing, and horrible that was. I would maybe tweak the horrible. It's not horrible, but it's fairly close to horrible. Yeah, letdown. But it is what it is, and you can't win them all. And it's difficult to make a movie. And it's even harder to make a good one. And it's hugely difficult to make a great one, and almost impossible to make a masterpiece. And unfortunately, they didn't really reach any of those tiers. It was kind of, you know, they made a film. You know, they can they can claim that. It's a film. It is a film that exists and was cut together, but, you know, it's just one of those things. It's a few redeeming qualities here and there, but for the most part. unfortunate. I'm just beating the horse dead at this point, so I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Please leave me your thoughts down below on Battle Royale 2 Requiem, and if you've seen the Revenge cut, 20 minutes more. Worth it, not worth it? I'm probably going to watch it either way, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. If it improves or makes the film worse, if that's even possible. I feel like I'm ragging on this film far too much than I need to, but it's kind of a novelty for me. I don't usually watch films that are that, you know, bad, you know. It's strange because I'm sorry, but there's not really much about the. I don't know. On the surface, I don't feel like anything is bad, but just as a whole, it doesn't gel together well. And does that make a film bad or just not good? You know, and I feel bad for kind of laying into a movie. But again, I really do pick the films I watch fairly carefully, and it's not often that I get really disappointed by a film. But this is one of the more serious offenders of recent memory, I think, where it's like, man, that really wasn't that good, and it started off so well and just went downhill from there. I will definitely leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.